We are preparing to vote on whether to finally clean up a mess that was created on a previous watch. None of us were involved in the events that brought us to this point. Great Plains was a bad deal that never should have been done in the first place. I totally agree that Great Plains was flawed from the start, and I have deep philosophical beliefs that public assets should not be pledged to support a private enterprise. In fact, my outrage upon reading about this in the paper several years ago prompted my increased focus on city politics and ultimately my decision to run for office. However, we are not here to debate the merits of Great Plains, but to decide whether we honor our obligations. Great Plains was a failed attempt at economic development. The taxpayers have lost, the creditors have lost, and the stockholders have lost. The taxpayers lost when this deal was inked. A mistake was made in December 2000 when the Great Plains deal was signed, and we shouldn't make another tonight. The issue is real simple. We need to honor our obligations. Thank you.
Councilor Westcott.
Thank you. I kind of approach this from my background as a lawyer and look at the lawsuit and the settlement and the process. I can't help but approach it that way. That's what I do. And in this case, I think maybe it might be said that my clients in this matter are the citizens of District 2 who elected me to represent them on City Council. I think the settlement is premature. I'm not sure that it is a good settlement, and I think that the whole matter is being rushed. As some of the speakers said earlier, that over the last few years, several attempts have been made to persuade city officials to enter into a settlement agreement or to pay money to settle the claims. Pardon me. The problem then was that the city of Tulsa was not a defendant in the lawsuit. And because the city was not a defendant, it would have been illegal for city officials to pay any kind of money to settle the lawsuit. We weren't named in the lawsuit. We couldn't settle the lawsuit. I think it's pretty obvious that the city was named in the second amended petition as an expedient. Now that the city is named as a defendant, there is legal standing for the city to settle the lawsuit. Whether or not you agree that the settlement is a good idea or a bad idea, I think that's a fact. We weren't a party before. We couldn't participate in the settlement. Now that we are a party, we can participate in the settlement. Settlements of lawsuits are a way for both parties in a lawsuit, both the plaintiff and the defendant, to control their own destiny. If you take a lawsuit through trial, both sides are rolling the dice. You never know what a jury or what a judge is going to do in any particular lawsuit. You could win, you could lose, you could win a lesser amount, you could lose a lesser amount, you don't know. So a settlement is a way for both parties to look at the strengths and weaknesses of a lawsuit, gauge their exposure, gauge their liability, and enter into an agreement that may be not the best thing in the world for them, but it's better possibly than going to trial. That's what a settlement is. In order to reach a good decision on a settlement, you need to go through a process called discovery. After you're named in the lawsuit, after you answer the petition, then you go through a process where you kind of learn what the other side's evidence is. You learn the other side's strengths and weaknesses, you learn your own strengths and weaknesses, and based upon that, you can make a decision on settlement, whether or not it's a good idea. I have been a lawyer for quite a while, and I've never recommended that a party settle a lawsuit the day after they're named in an amended petition. I think it's premature. I've never recommended that a client of mine settle a lawsuit without doing discovery to discover the other side's strengths and weaknesses, to learn about our strengths and weaknesses. I in my opinion, and as Councilor Turner said, we all have those, but in my opinion, I think the claim of unjust enrichment against the city of Tulsa is weak. I don't think the city of Tulsa was enriched, and I certainly don't think, if we were enriched, I don't think that we were unjustly enriched. I think that, and I'm going to try to wrap up and be brief, I think that this settlement agreement is premature. Absolutely. I think that if we were to go through a certain discovery phase, we might be able to position this to settle the lawsuit for a lesser amount than $7 million. And I'll wrap up with that. Thank you.
Councilor Troyer.
Thank you, Chair. There's a couple of things that a couple of people made the statement, I didn't know anything about this. Well, I didn't know anything about it because I was on vacation on a mission trip when they had an executive session about this, and unbeknownst to me, they had an executive session on this. If I'd been, I guess, on my toes, if you want to put it that way, I would have asked. But this was the furthest thing from my mind. This has been brought up to the council since I've been on several times, and I always thought it was a dead issue. So there was no concern for me to ask any questions about Great Plains or a lawsuit being settled. So that was the reason why. It wasn't because I wasn't, it was my fault. And I hear a lot of comments about Mayor Taylor. Mayor is doing a fine job. Y'all had your words, huh?
Excuse me.
Y'all had your words.
Excuse me. Nobody interrupted the speakers when they're at the microphone. Please don't interrupt Councilor Troyer.
Thank you very much. With what she had to work with, everybody knows that there are several things that the previous administrations have left. And what she is trying to do is clean up some things. It doesn't matter, the way it sounds, it doesn't matter, you know, what we're going to do here tonight. But I'm like everybody else, I've got an opinion. Councilor Westcott said it good, and there's a lot of speakers out here that said it very well. And I agree with them. But for us to come down on Mayor Taylor, I think we're jumping the gun. I think it's a little bit, as the word is going around, convoluted. But that's beside the point. But here again, we're faced with a decision on something that, what can we really do about it but voice our opinion and the way it will go down. I agree with Councilor Westcott and his statement, and I'll just stop there.
Councilor Patrick.
Thank you. This really stinks. I hate this. It should have never happened to begin with, but it did. Now we're asked to step up to the plate, and they tell us we have no choice. Our hands are tied. And I hate that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to vote for this, but I have to. I'm going to be the bad guy here no matter how it comes out. But this shouldn't have never happened, but it did. So I'm going to have to vote for this, and I'll be voting for this tonight. But I'm voting for this and not wanting to. Thank you.
Any further council discussion? Councilor Henderson.
I have had a long time to think about this, and we knew it was coming back. It was just a matter of when it was coming back. I've weighed both sides. When I first thought about it, when it came up the first time, I was sympathetic for the Bank of Oklahoma because I felt that they had listened to a city official that gave them some assurances that some things were going to happen that didn't happen. And since that time, I've learned that if the council elect, and I'm not talking about tonight's vote, I'm talking about the vote before, if the council were to vote to spend city money that we were not actually involved in a lawsuit, then we could turn around and be sued. Time passed, and now here we are again, getting ready to try to decide if we should let this money come out of the sinking fund to pay a debt that somebody say that we owe them. I still can't see how I could, in good conscience, vote to spend that money without finding out more information to clear my mind to know that that amount of money, of citizens' money, is going to the right thing. So with that, I am going to declare that my vote tonight is going to be one of the conscience of the people that have talked to me from day one about this issue. And the majority of the people that I have had an opportunity to have a conversation with is not the people that have a lot of money. It's not the fat, rich people that could care less about $7.5 million. It's those that can't afford to buy gasoline, those who can't afford to put a roof over somebody's head, those who can't afford and sometimes don't know if they are going to be able to purchase medicine. I'm talking about the people that I represent in my district. So my vote tonight is going to be a vote of conscience. It's going to be a vote that most people may not understand, and I can say to you that whether you understand it or not, I always pray about the votes that I take before I take them. And I prayed many times about this particular vote. And at this point, I cannot, with clear conscience, support paying any money at this time without, and I think what really should happen is that I am sick and tired of people being afraid to go to court, to being afraid to let somebody decide who's right and who's wrong. That's what the system is all about. That's how lawyers get rich, I know, but the bottom line is that's how things are decided, and it takes pressure off people that we sit here as counselors and trying to figure out if we should do this or do that. And I say the best way to do it is to go ahead and if there's going to be a lawsuit filed because this thing does not pass, and they have a right to do that, and then let the chips fall where they may. But at the same time, I agree that we may come up with a lesser settlement. And I'm always for paying less money, especially when the money that we're talking about is not our money, it's the citizens' money. And that's who sent us to these seats, and I think that's who we should listen to. I think tonight we had a large crowd of people come down here and give us their opinions about this. And it's always weird because there's so many times that we spend a lot of money and nobody shows up one way or the other. They don't care. In this particular issue, it brought some people out that are very, very, very upset that they think that we would just give this money up without finding out more facts, without going the extra mile, as the counselor said. And Councilor Westcott, I want to say to you that I think that you made a lot of sense in the statements that you made a few minutes ago, and it kind of reflected some of the things that I want to say. And since I'm not on the clock, 5-minute clock, these people are ready to go home, and I didn't have to say all of that. So I am going to end by saying that my vote tonight will be no.
Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to say thank you for coming down, expressing your opinions. This has been an ongoing
problem for the city of Tulsa, for the airport authority. It will be good to get this behind us, and while I certainly understand that this process was rather expedient, we are in the position where this is not discretionary. We must vote to affirm the administration's position. And so, you know, again, I will say I didn't like the Great Plains deal in the beginning. I thought it was, you know, convoluted at best. And, you know, I think it is an example of when we look at future endeavors, you know, we shouldn't put up public facilities for private enterprises. Thank you, Chair.
Any further council discussion? Allow me to have my say. It is easy to criticize the act that the council will take tonight, but do not allow yourself to be deceived. The resolution is perfunctory. I do not believe we have the discretion to say no without being a defendant in a writ of mandamus lawsuit, and it would be acting contrary to our sworn oaths as city councilor to uphold the laws of the city of Tulsa, the state of Oklahoma, the Constitution of Oklahoma, and the Constitution of the United States. That said, I don't have to like this settlement. I believe the allegations raised against the city of Tulsa for unjust enrichment are dubious. I would like to see more discovery before we proceed into a resolution. And I believe that the settlement was done unduly fast, unduly behind closed doors, and in a way that did not foster public trust, as evidenced by those people who came here tonight to express their views. I'll be voting to support the resolution because I believe it's my duty to do so per the oaths that I've already taken. I would like to raise notoriety of one person that I believe is a hero in all of this. According to paragraph 9 of the amended petition, 8 city councilors voted to support the Great Plains debacle back in November of 2000. The name that is not listed is that of Clay Bird, a city councilor who took a principled stand in a minority view, stood up for what he believed to be right, to keep government out of private industry, and while he was not successful at that time, demonstrated the wisdom and farsightedness of his vote, even though he lost that particular round of ballots. That said, I will entertain motions.
Move approval of 3B.
Second.
That's without the emergency clause, correct?
Separate roll call on the emergency clause, please.
Call the roll.
Martinson?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Eagleton?
Yes.
Henderson?
No.
Westcott?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Gomez?
Yes.
Emergency clause? Martinson?
Yes.
Troyer?
No.
Eagleton?
Yes.
Henderson?
No.
Westcott?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Gomez?
Yes.
With no further business before council, we are adjourned.
Can we find out